What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Directed by Joaquin dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, Phil Lord and Chris Miller return as writers alongside Dave Callahan, and we have a returning cast of people like Shameik, Hailee Steinfeld, Jake Johnson, and some new faces like Oscar Isaac, Issa Rae, and many more. Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome to my review for the long-awaited sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, and now we have Across the Spider-Verse. When they first announced that there was going to be two new movies that were going to follow up that original film, they said they were going to be a part 1 and a part 2, then they dropped the part 1 and part 2 element and said that the stories were still going to be integral to one another, but instead that this next movie was going to be called Across the Spider-Verse. I've talked about it here on this channel on a bunch of occasions, but Spider-Man is without a doubt one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, easily one of my favorite characters of all time. And whether it be the video games I grew up playing, the TV shows I grew up watching from before my time and of my time and beyond my time, Spider-Man has always been something I have just had a deep love for. The comic books, the movies, the games, the shows, I've just always been super deep into the lore and the expanding universe of all the various Spider-Man and Spider-Women characters. It's always been a world I really thoroughly enjoy, and while there has been some Spider-Man movies that haven't been phenomenal at times, for the most part it's been a franchise that I am almost always excited to see a new installment for. And lately we've been eating really good when it comes to Spider-Man, whether it be with the video games, the TV shows, the ever-expanding universe of characters, the movies that have come out, the multiverse stuff. We're just living in a really good time for Spider-Man. And as a kid, I was always just dying to see them go really far with the Spider-Man stuff in the same way that they did with video games, or in the same way that they did with things like the comic books. And when Into the Spider-Verse came out, I was through the roof with excitement, just based on the premise when I saw the trailer, and then when I saw that movie. I think without a doubt it's one of the best animated films of all time, one of the best Spider-Man movies of all time, and one of the best comic book movies of all time, that I felt really started to showcase what the comic books for Spider-Man had slowly become over time. You know, the stuff we're seeing in the movies now, especially something like No Way Home, as exciting as that was for a lot of, you know, casual moviegoers who love comic books, stuff like that with all these Spider-Man coming through the multiverse has been commonplace for many years. So all this to say, this stuff is my bread and butter. I love it so much. And so when we saw Into the Spider-Verse and all the various characters that I never thought I'd ever see on the big screen coming together on the big screen, all these various Spider characters, I was thrilled. Here we are now with the sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, and I'm so happy to say I had a blast with it, and I'm very happy to say as well that I actually enjoyed the film quite a bit more than the original film, and the original film is easily one of my favorite Spider-Man films, with this film maybe possibly being a contender for my favorite Spider-Man film of all time, or without a doubt the most Spider-Man movie of all time. Before I get too much further into this as well, I just want to make a quick shout out to my fiance, because I made another video that's coming out in a few days where I talk about the fact that my ring light that I usually put my phone on and film on was broken. It snapped in half. And so before filming this, I was a little bummed that I wasn't going to have the same lighting quality and that I wasn't going to be able to use my ring light. My fiance decided to quickly design something here for me using my broken, snapped off ring light with a shoebox and some t-shirts inside of it to try to keep it in a steady position for me. And I just want to give huge shout out to my fiance for that, because now I'm able to still film here with some good lighting, and at least it doesn't make me feel as self-conscious about the video overall. So again, huge shout out to my fiance for that and her innovative work. Let's get into my thoughts here on Across the Spider-Verse. If you've seen the trailers, you know that this is a big multiverse movie expanding upon the Spider-Verse world, showing in the trailer that there's going to be hundreds of Spider characters, which completely excited me. Again, I was completely excited to see the first one and see these characters I never expected that I would ever see come to the big screen having their own spotlight in a movie. You know, it's just something that blew my mind. So to see a movie like this, where we have all of these characters that are making so many appearances and cameos over the course of this movie, it was just a nerd's dream, to be completely honest. And I think the beauty of this film is that it's not just something that's wholly reliant on those cameos. It's not just something that's wholly reliant on all the big fanfare comic book stuff that we just want to see. While this film does have tons of Easter eggs, little things in the background, and versions of Spider-Man and Spider-Woman that we just see pass by for seconds that are from the comic books and various games and all these other things that just make quick, brief appearances, there's also a ton of characters in here that are part of that legacy of Spider-Man who do have actual time to shine in this movie. And I think that that's what I really loved about it, is that they utilize a lot of these mainstay, huge Spider-Man characters that fans of the comics have loved for years and actually do something with them here in this movie. It isn't just something where all of them are cameos, though there are plenty of them that are just relegated to quick cameos and Easter eggs, which of course, as a longtime fan of Spider-Man, I was absolutely thrilled by. And I'm so glad that I was able to capture all the references, at least for the most part. I'm sure upon revisits there'll be some things I missed, but as far as anything that's near the front of the screen or is just like right there for you to see or right in the background, I caught all of it because, again, Spider-Man is something I've been so engrossed in. So if you're going into this movie just hoping for a good Spider-Man time that has tons for you to just kind of soak up as a fan in terms of Easter eggs and cameos, there's plenty of that here. Now, I don't want to talk too much on the story because if you've seen the trailer, it's pretty straightforward. You can tell that there's obviously this world where there's all these spider men and women. There's like a spider community in a way, a spider world in a lot of ways, that Miles Morales, our main character from the previous film, ends up kind of becoming a part of here. He ends up seeing that there's all these other Spider-Men. And amidst all this, you can see that the main villain of this is played by Oscar Isaac. He plays Miguel O'Hara, who is Spider-Man 99. Or 2099. And when I saw him in the post-credit scene for the first Into the Spider-Verse, I was absolutely thrilled to see that character being brought to the big screen. I was excited to see what they would do with him here in the sequel because he's one of the most complex spider characters from the comic books, and again, he's appeared in other things as well. And so I really just got to start this off by saying that I loved Oscar Isaac as this character. I really thoroughly enjoyed the time spent on screen with him. I really enjoyed the menacing presence here, and I really enjoyed just the way that they weave this story around. It's tough to talk about without getting into deep spoilers, but the base premise of this film is that Miles Morales is now in this place where, you know, he's no longer this kid. He's still technically a teenager. He's still a kid in a lot of ways, but he's been Spider-Man now for a little bit over a year. He's trying to figure himself out. And over the course of the film, he is reintroduced to some old friends amidst this whole multiverse element. There's a new threat in the mix known as the Spot, and they work together to try to defeat this individual. And once he gets integrated into this world with all these various other spider characters, he ends up kind of realizing that something bad is going to happen and that he needs to try to stop it, except there are some very specific reasons for why maybe he can't just do that in terms of the timeline, the canon, and the various things going on across the Spider-Verse. And so amidst all this, you have certain characters like Miguel O'Hara's character, Spider-Man 2099, who want to stop Miles Morales from doing this to not endanger the future of the timeline. And so that's the base premise of the film without getting too deep into spoilers. So this is a movie similar to the first one about Miles Morales kind of coming into his own. He's got to really kind of take everything he's learned from the previous film and show everybody that he's no longer just this dumb punk kid who wants to be Spider-Man, but instead has gotten to the place now where he's a full-fledged Spider-Man. He knows what he's doing and he's trying to prove that to everybody. And I think this is a movie that a lot of people can relate to when it comes to the idea of dropping who we once were and showing everybody who we are now. And I think that's something that I think, again, we can all really relate to. I really enjoy that about this film, that the central theme of this is they're not dumbing down Miles Morales to be this weak character once again. He's badass and he's Spider-Man throughout the course of the film from beginning to end, and he fights through these situations with a lot of integrity and heart. And I think what makes this film really great is the fact that he is really trying to prove to not only himself but to everybody else that he is no longer who he once was and that he can bring something bigger and better to the world as Spider-Man and as himself and who he's grown to be. And that's something I really thoroughly enjoyed about this. So on a story level, I think Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Dave Callahan, I think, did a great job once again to just make this a really great character story, something that really expands upon characters, has multiple characters here. There's a lot of great visual storytelling as well. And beyond this great story, you have great music throughout, you have beautiful animation. I would say similar to the first film, this is one of the greatest animated films I've ever seen. Some of the greatest greatest Spider-Man action ever brought to screen as well. There are so many moments in this film where the visuals are absolutely stunning that just make it feel like a big comic book movie while also feeling so unique to what these films are. It utilizes the multiverse and all these various other Spider characters that you see with different animation styles so well and creatively, where everything about this film just feels so unique. This film and this franchise thus far has had such a great identity. You have great voice work once again, and I think Shameik, who plays Miles Morales, just once again really fantastic in this role. And on an overall level, this was a fantastic time at the movies. The movie is nearly 2.5 hours, and I never felt the runtime, to be completely honest. I felt like it breezed by. I was never bored while watching this movie. I had to pee pretty early on into this movie, to be completely honest, and I didn't want to move, and I was so distracted and so caught up with the movie that it was like my bladder just said, yeah, I'm gonna wait on having to pee as well and watch this movie alongside you, because the pacing of the film just felt so smooth and just breezed by, and there's really never any downtime. And when there is downtime for some character beats and some character moments, I found that even in those moments it was still very well paced. The dialogue was great, the character moments were great, the animation on the small nuance of facial performance I thought was great, and for the most part, just on pretty much every level, I found this to be a masterpiece. I think the first one and this one have just proven to be some of the greatest comic book movies of all time. Not only some of the best Spider-Man movies, but some of the best in this genre. Wholeheartedly, I would say, similar to the first one, that this is a masterpiece. I think there is so much about this that is so exciting, and like I mentioned before, they leave it open for where things are going to go, because the next two stories, or this story and another one, were meant to be one big story at one point, and they're still definitely a part of that here when it comes to this movie. So I think the one thing that may hold this back for some people as being its own whole great movie is that it is very much tied to what's going to come in the future with the next installment, but in no way, shape, or form did that take away from the adventure that I just watched, because I was gripped. I was completely encapsulated in the world, the score, the look, the feel, the vibe, the characters, the cameos, the fun, silly comic book side of it, but also the heart that this movie has when it comes to its characters, and just really, leaning into that message again of proving who we are, and fighting for who we've become versus who we once were in the eyes of a lot of people. And then it's got the big sci-fi comic booky element that's just fun to watch, that I had a blast with. As a longtime Spider-Man fan, as somebody who was able to capture pretty much every reference I saw on screen, I was thrilled by this movie, and I look forward to checking it out again in just a few days, and I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. So are you a fan of Across the Spider-Verse? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.